Hi, this is The Greatest Story Ever Played. I'm Dan, and today I'm going to be talking about Uncharted 3, Drake's Deception. So, a description for this game is: a search for the fabled Atlantis of the Sands propels fortune hunter Nathan Drake into a desperate bid for survival that strains the limits of his endurance, forcing him to confront his deepest fears. The studio that produced this is Naughty Dog. We know them for a lot of games, including The Last of Us, the other Uncharted games, and Crash Bandicoot. This is the third of the 4 Nathan Drake Uncharted games that are out, and then there's another one that's out that's focused on Chloe, called Lost Legacy. So, the characters that are in this game that are kind of the main ones is Nathan Drake, of course, a character we play as. He's a treasure hunter. We've got Victor Sullivan, who is Drake's mentor. Chloe Frazier, a fellow thief who has worked before with Drake, and she was in Uncharted 2. Charlie Cutter, he's a fellow thief as well, who has worked with Drake, but not in any games. This is the first time we meet him. We've got Elena Fisher, Drake's on and off love interest. We've got Catherine Marlowe. She's kind of the head bad guy in this. She kind of reminds me of M from 007. And then Talbot, he's the right-hand man of Marlowe. He kind of looks like he's about Drake's age and is a competent treasure hunter / second-hand command of sorts. So the game starts off, and we're in London, and Drake and Sully are selling Francis Drake's ring to Marlowe. So they meet up in this bar. To do that, while they're there, Talbot gives them fake money and steals the ring, which of course starts a barroom brawl, and they start glassing each other, as we learned from Wolf Among Us. They start glassing each other. Drake and Sully fight their way out and are attempting to get the ring back from Marlowe. Ultimately, they end up in this spot where they get cornered, and Marlowe takes the ring from Drake, and then the henchmen that are with them, one of them shoots Drake and Sully. What? It's wild. You're like, oh my god, did they just kill them to start the game? Then we get a flashback, and we are in Colombia. And it's 20 years earlier, and you're playing as 15-year-old Nathan Drake. This is wild. At this point, I'm like, oh my god. Did we just see the end of the game at the front, and we're gonna play our way there? Shocking, super shocking. Drake goes to the Sir Francis Drake Museum that's there. While he's there, he ends up meeting Sully. Drake steals Sully's wallet to be able to get a key that will get him inside the museum because Nate is trying to steal Sir Francis Drake's ring. Evidently, Sully was also trying to do that at that time. Drake gets to the museum and steals the ring. While he's there, though, Marlowe and Sully, along with some of her henchmen, show up to get the ring, and they demand that Nate gives it over. Nate, though, attempts to escape and is running off, and he's doing roof jumping and stuff like that. And this is pretty different than playing as Nate as an adult, just because Nate as an adult has a gun, of course, but also is a good fist fighter, and, see him punch a lot of people and stuff like that. Little Nate can't really do that, so you can only evade people, basically. And you're jumping from rooftop, you're evading people, and then you ultimately get cornered on a rooftop with a guy with a gun on you. But Sully comes and saves you. He comes to your rescue so that you won't be harmed, and stows you away. So Sully takes pity on you and takes you under his wing. Really cool origin story. Really nice seeing this relationship's origin, the start of it. We flash forward back to London. Drake and Sully get up, revealing that this was a ruse. Cutter was the one who had shot them, who we hadn't met yet, and looked like a scary henchman. They'd had blood packets. He faked shooting them to cross them. Drake also stole the ring at this point. After this, they get joined by Chloe and they go and look to find out where Marlowe went. They ultimately find this apartment, or this warehouse building, and there's no car there. They end up finding that there's an underground hideout of Marlowe's that once you trick a wall into opening, you can go there. And so they do that. It's cool seeing a gang of the 4 spies together, Chloe being back, meeting Cutter, and then with Drake and Sully. This is nice. In the underground hideout, they find out 2 potential locations for their kind of next clue. One is in France, one is in Syria. Drake and Sully say, we will take France, so then Chloe and Cutter will move ahead to Syria, and whoever finds stuff out will call the other ones. In France, Drake and Sully go to find more information. Talbot shows up, and they have to deal with him. So Talbot's just one step behind him, it seems. When they're going through this castle in France is someone who worked for the Queen back in the day, and he knew some stuff and was involved with Drake and was kind of figuring stuff out, but clearly subverted information to keep this treasure hidden. While you're and this rundown castle looks really cool in France too. As a side point, it looks awesome. This was maybe one of my favorite settings in the game. It looked pretty cool. While you are in the castle, though, you end up having to escape from a bunch of spiders, and it's as gross as it sounds. They're just swarming. It's so many, and super nasty. After this, you leave, though, and you go to Syria to meet up with Cutter and Chloe. You meet up with them and are searching more for the clues. You end up finding them, and you're heading towards your next kind of objective for looking for treasure, but Talbot shows up and he injects Cutter with some drugs on his in his neck, which makes Cutter a little bit crazy. He's more agitated and is not himself anymore. Not full-blown crazy, but a little bit. You can tell he's off. He knows he's off, and they know that he got drugged, but they think he'll just like barf or whatever. While they are making their way through this passage, Cutter freaks out because he doesn't like small spaces anyway, but then the drugs just really enhance it. He thinks that Nate is trying to harm him. You end up having to fist fight Cutter, but you mostly are playing defense as you don't want to hurt him. He's your friend. This is pretty wild, seeing that shift in him. After you calm Cutter down, continue on. After this, you find out you need to go to Yemen. That's where the next kind of clues are at. Drake and Sully enter Yemen, and when they get there, it's because of the help of Elena, who is currently working there as a journalist. While they're there, Drake and Elena have an awkward wedding ring conversation, revealing that they were married but are separated now and haven't seen each other. Elena is still wearing her wedding ring, and Drake's like, oh, you're still wearing that. And he, on the other hand, was kind of acting like he'd moved on, but it was actually around his neck on a loop. So it's strange, and it's definitely sad, just with how exciting everything was for them at the end of Uncharted 2. It was a bummer to see them here. They find a room of Francis Drake's, and it reveals to them the actual location of where the treasure will be. And Nate is super excited about this. He says, we finally got it. And he tells Elena that you love this as much as I do. But Elena says, not anymore. She's concerned for Nate's safety. She's concerned for Sully's safety. She thinks treasure hunting is fun, but she thinks the danger is not, and it's not worth it anymore. And so this reveals to us what probably broke Nate and Elena apart. Is that he wanted to continue adventuring, and she was too afraid of losing him in that, which is really sad, and it was a sad moment here. But a really good way for them to tell us that. Good job, Naughty Dog. After they find this, of course, Talbot and his people show up to try to steal the location from them. While they're fleeing, Drake ends up getting drugged like Cutter with a dart to the neck and gets captured. They're questioning Drake, trying to find out where Sully is. They end up not needing to, though, because they could find Sully on their own. So Drake is left behind with this pirate named Ramses, who is either going to keep him as a slave or kill him. I think it was kill him. However, Drake manages to escape, and he's fighting out of Ramses' ship graveyard. This is pretty cool. There are, I don't know, probably like 20 ships or something. There's a lot that are all just broken down in this harbor, and varying ones are with rooms where guards are and stuff like that. And so you have to actually break your way through the ship graveyard. It's pretty cool. You get a good mix of swimming and shooting and scaling things. It was pretty fun. I really liked this part of the game specifically. This might have been my favorite part. You ultimately end up inside this huge cruise ship. Looks like the Titanic kind of thing. Obviously not that large, but it's wild, and it's got, like this big ballroom and all this stuff. And there's a point where he's in a ballroom with a standoff with Ramses, and the glass is destroyed and water starts seeping in, and Drake has to try to swim up through the boat to escape. It's very cool. This is great. Also, Drake was in here longer because he thought Sully was captured inside here, when it turned out that Sully was captured by Talbot's people already, or Ramsey tricked him to thinking that Sully was here. So that's what kept Drake around there a little longer. Drake ends up going to Elena's apartment, and she tells him that Sully has already been captured by Talbot's people and Marlowe. At this point, Drake and Elena go to sneak to the airport to try to board one of Marlowe's people's planes, which is going to head where Sully is at the location of the treasure, hoping that he can be a stowaway. On their way sneaking in, they reach a point where it's looking pretty tough. You're going to get, you're going to have to run to that plane and get it right away. Drake, though, recognizes that this is dangerous, so he tells Elena, this is the end of the line. Take the car and go. Get out of here. I'm going to try and do this, but I don't want you to get in trouble, too, basically. Elena agrees, and Drake is going for the plane, and it's not looking like he's going to make it. But Elena shows up. She drives her car there. Drake jumps on it and uses the car to be able to jump onto the plane's the wheel at the front of the plane as it descends up inside the plane, and the plane takes off. So Drake makes it on. Elena is no longer with Drake, and Drake is going. This is cool. Once on the plane, Drake has to fight Marlowe's men. This is pretty wild as things are flying out of the plane. There are people shooting on a plane. It gets nuts. Ultimately, the plane ends up exploding, but Drake is able to escape because he holds on to a giant box that has a parachute on it, and it enables him to fall into the desert without dying. Drake is then, after the wreck, gets super disoriented. There's just wreckage in this desert, and he's walking around trying to find water and supplies, anything he can. He gets really disoriented and ultimately is going in circles. After a while of hopelessness, Drake ends up finding this abandoned town, which sucks. He finds a well, but then the well is run dry. It's kind of a bad luck Drake situation. Marlowe's men, though, come and attack Drake. They recognize that the plane was down, so they go try to find what happened to it, their men, and presumably Drake is a part of this. As they're being attacked, though, some horsemen come and save him. And they're led by this guy who we find out his name is Salim, and his horsemen, they're a bunch of guys from Yemen who save Drake. It's pretty cool. You get this awesome kind of escape while you're on horseback and they're going. That's pretty good. Once you're able to escape, you talk to Salim, and he says the Aram, which is the city, the lost city that Drake is looking for, became cursed by the vengeful spirits of the jinn, and unleashing those spirits will mean death for everyone. So there's these evil spirits that are evidently here. And Salim, his duty and his men's duty is to make sure the Aram isn't found. They don't want it to be released because if the jinn, these demons, are released, it will be doom for all. And so Salim and Drake have a mutual enemy, Marlowe. So they team up to try to stop Marlowe and her people, and also to save Sully. You get a very cool save chase, very reminiscent of the one in Uncharted 2. It's pretty great. So you're on horseback, and you end up chasing this caravan down. You get to shoot various people on there, and then you ultimately are able to save Sully along the way. And it's pretty fun. You can either stay on your horseback and shoot people, or jump into cars for a little while, then jump back to your horse. It's pretty fun. This was definitely one of the more fun parts of the game, I thought. Ultimately, you save Sully, and you arrive at Aram, and you see that some of Marlowe's people have already gotten there, so you need to go inside to stop them. You go inside the city, and while inside the city, Drake is astounded that the water system still works, water is still going. He drinks some of it. They're looking around more for Marlowe's people, and then he sees Sully get shot in the chest and go down. Oh my god, they killed Sully. What? Drake then fights Marlowe's men, but they're not exactly Marlowe's men, because they're clearly possessed by the jinn. They're on fire. Fighting them is way harder than fighting her normal people because they're possessed. It's pretty wild. It gets pretty trippy. There's definitely like deeper hallucination-y type stuff that Drake goes through, where it like turns red for a while, and he's like clearly messed up. What we end up finding out is that the water made Drake hallucinate, and that Sully's alive. Apparently, the water did that, but Drake ends up being all right, and the city starts to go down. It starts caving in on itself due to quicksand, and we see. So Drake and Sully are trying to escape, as are Marlowe, Talbot, and her men. Marlowe ends up getting sucked into the quicksand and asks Drake to save her. Drake is uncertain. Sully tells him to leave her, but Drake tries to, but it is too late. Marlowe and Sir Francis Drake's ring are sucked into the quicksand. As after this, they're escaping as the city is coming down around them. They're jumping from pillar to pillar on the bridge. This is pretty reminiscent of the first game of escaping there. As they're escaping, you end up having to fight Talbot, who at this point is kind of, if I'm going down, you're going down with me kind of attitude. Drake and Talbot fight for a little bit. Ultimately, Talbot is killed and falls into the quicksand as well. As they're getting ready to get out of the city, they're right near escaping. Salim and his horsemen show up, and they save Sully and Drake, and they're able to escape the city as it all crumbles into the quicksand. Made it. After this, Sully has a brief father-son type talk with Drake. It says, hey, I never had kids, but I I never really wanted them, but then you came into my life, and I care about you, and I wanted you to have this. And Sully hands Drake back Drake's own wedding ring that he thought was lost. But Sully had saved it for him, which is cool. This is good of him. It's a really nice moment between them. After this, Elena comes out, and they talk, and Elena tells him that she's sorry that she lost Sir Francis's ring, and Nate says, it's okay, I've got a better one, and shows her the ring, and they hug, and then Elena, Nate, and Sully leave on a plane. Game over. So, a couple general thoughts on the game for me. I'd previously heard that Uncharted 3 was the worst of the Uncharted games, and so I think my expectations were a bit lower going into it. Hearing people say that it was bad, I was kind of like, I don't know. Is that real or not? Uncharted 2, on the other hand, is really, really good, and so part of me wondered, well, is it just because it's below that? Because being below Uncharted 2 doesn't make you bad, because Uncharted 2 is pretty great. What I found is there was some stuff I liked and some I didn't. I think I probably liked it better than Uncharted 1, but I think I like Uncharted 2 more. A thing that I really didn't like in this game is I thought that the bad guys were pretty lame. Marlo, again, just kind of reminded me of an evil M from James Bond. I didn't like her. I didn't think she was very threatening. I like that her and Sully had some history. I thought that was interesting, but aside from that, I thought she was kind of a boring bad guy. I thought that Talbot, similarly, was not that great of a bad guy. He just seemed like a British Drake who was bad or something almost. So I didn't really like them that much. I definitely thought that the bad people with Lazarevich in Uncharted 2, and then the pirates / other treasure hunters in Uncharted 1, I thought that those were all better bad guys than this. So I think they missed there. I think that was a little bit of a disappointment. On the other hand, I do like that they added Cutter to Drake's crew of treasure hunters. I thought that was cool. He was an interesting new character to bring aboard who, seemed like he would just be kind of dumb muscle, but then he also actually knew his stuff and was British, and that was pretty fun. I also like that Chloe was back. I definitely thought we wouldn't see her again. I thought she was just a one-time character for Uncharted 2, and people loved her enough that she showed up and got her own spin-off. So I was really excited to see her again. I didn't think that would happen. That was nice seeing her. I really thought Sully was dead. I definitely thought they killed him off in there. That worked really well. They had me fooled. I thought he was done for, and that definitely made me sad because I like Sully and has meant a lot to Drake, and so if he was dead, that would have been a huge bummer. Lastly, I hope that the Uncharted 4 has more Elena in it. I really like her. I thought she was especially great in Uncharted 2. I think in the Uncharted 2 one, I commented that I was glad that she wasn't just a Bond girl, where she's just the cute girl in one movie or whatever. Instead, she's clearly an important and main character. So I like that her and Drake were married. It's sad that fell apart, but it seems like now that they're back together, and I hope that continues. I really hope that in the next one that she's with him on a lot of the adventure there. And actually, I like both of them enough that I think I would play a more quote-unquote boring game with them even in it. I don't know what you would do to do that, but even if it wasn't the crazy adventures that Uncharted are, if it was somehow shifted, I think I would still want to play it, because Elena and Nate are pretty cool characters, and it's pretty interesting. I don't know. I think there could be options of some sort. But yeah, I hope she's in it more. I think she's really great. I like her and Nate together. And even that camaraderie that them two and Sully all have together, it's pretty nice. It's a good family of sorts they've built. So I like that. I hope she's in it more. Now for a little bit of listener feedback that people wrote in about Uncharted 3. Elena on Twitter said, it was amazing as the other Uncharted games. So she likes Uncharted 3 as much as any other ones. That's great. That's exciting to hear someone loves it just as much. Case on Twitter said the story wasn't as strong or compelling as Among Thieves, Uncharted 2. For me, it was the most fun Uncharted, though. And, yeah, I could see that. There are some parts in this game that are exceptionally fun. I thought the France castle was cool. I thought riding on horseback, that was super fun, especially chasing down that caravan. There's a lot of pretty fun moments in this game. And really, for how many there are that were fun, I was surprised that Uncharted 3 gets as much hate as it gets. Oh, and also he said, sorry, I left out part of Case's comment. He also said you went to the craziest locations and it was an all-around beautiful game. Definitely agree with that too. Lots of cool locations, really awesome looking. That was definitely a huge positive about this game. There were multiple times where I was just like, wow, this game looks great. Ryan on Twitter wrote in and said, my favorite one of the series, wasn't all that impressed story-wise with 4. The story in 3 captivated me and the set pieces were intensive as ever. Yeah, that's cool. Again, someone who really likes this game. It's cool seeing Uncharted 3 be people's favorites. Yeah, I think that's a good sign for a series when multiple games or movies or whatever can be considered the best. You know, like when people will debate the Star Wars as to, is it Empire, is it Jedi, is it one of the new ones? What's best? That's good. And Uncharted, I think, has that. It seems like maybe 1 wouldn't be in a lot of conversations. I've seen 2 and 4 a lot, but it's good even seeing 3 show up here as someone's favorite. So, very cool. Great set pieces. Agreed. Alicia on Twitter says, unpopular opinion, but I liked it as much, if not more, than Uncharted 2. Again, a lot of love, it seems like, for Uncharted 3, and maybe the haters have just been a little louder than everyone else. Jonah on Twitter said, my least favorite of the bunch, the amount of shootouts was ridiculous. Uncharted 4 is way more on the exploring side, which I loved, and finally a story that went on beyond the goofy campiness. So this is kind of the other side. I didn't like it, but I really like Uncharted 4. Since I haven't played 4, I don't know yet how much I will like or not like it, but I'm definitely excited to play it. Uncharted 2, I really, really loved, and I enjoyed 3, so I'm looking forward to that. Also exploring, that'd be pretty fun, especially with how fucking good these games look. Like, they just look wonderful. To get to explore, I'm interested, for sure. And then last, Nikki on Twitter, she said, I liked it. The final chapters were so cool, especially being lost in that desert. That was intense. Yeah, it was. The flashbacks, too. I cried happy tears when Teen Nate and Sully shook hands. But the bits with the spiders crept me out. I'm usually alright with spiders. Elena and Nate made me cry, too. Yeah, the flashback. The flashback with Teen Nate. That was cool. Seeing some origin story. It was clear that he's an orphan. And so, yeah, Sully's really been his family this whole time. That was really nice. It was good getting an origin story for him, just because you're like, how did you come to be who you are? How does one become a treasure hunter? Stuff like that. You can see that he was a guy who cared about Sir Francis Drake from a young age, and then became just like him. It's pretty cool. I like that a lot. So, yeah, thank you, everyone, for writing in about Uncharted and for checking out this episode on Uncharted. If you have any comments or questions, please write in at thegreateststoryeverplayed@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/greateststoryeverplayed or on Twitter at storyeverpod. Also, please rate and review us on iTunes or whatever podcast app you use. That would really help out a lot and help get the show out to more people. Also, for these kind of one-off episodes that I've been doing on the side. The next one I will do is Game of Thrones episode 3 from Telltale. So I'm going to continue that now on this as kind of my side project of sorts. So just a heads up there. That should probably be out later this month. Not 100%, but probably should. So yeah, that is all. So I will see you next time.